have a couple questions, just to
Sure.
set you up a little. The short version of how you find yourself engaged with this sort of work.
The very short version,
Yeah.
I was a pastor for 22 years. On one vacation, I was walking up 2 years after a major heart attack I wasn't supposed to live through. My wife was at the bottom of Mount San Jacinto praying the Lord would show me what he wanted from me. I was perfectly content with what I was doing as a church planting pastor. And on the way up the mountain, God spoke to my heart as clear as a bell and just let me know what he wanted me to do, that he wanted me to move into training pastors internationally in spiritual reproduction for their churches, and to give the controls of the church over to the elders and the associate pastor and go from there.
Now, you had some experience with it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Up into that.
quite a
So
bit.
That you just didn't make up this.
No.
So you'd had some experience from going while you were a pastor to do
Yes.
some of this.
So
The seed was well planted.
Yes, I did a lot of training in evangelism, plus church planting. I'd been on the board of a church planting mission for several years and trained church planters as well. So.
Well, why don't you come give us an update
Okay.
on what's up and where it's up? I
All
guess
right.
you'd say that's fair.
Thanks, Neil. It is a blessing to be with you. I've been praying for you all week. I hope you've been praying for me too. But anyway, my wife Maxine, you want to stand? Several of you know her already. And we are directors for Vanguard Division of Global Training Network. From 1999 to 2017, I was CEO over Vanguard Global Network. And then a couple of years ago, we made a transition where we became part of a much larger group, Global Training Network. We realized we were doing exactly the same things in exactly the same places. And I would be able to continue to do my ministry but not have the headache of administration or have to make out reports to the IRS, et cetera. So I said, that sounds wonderful. So we became part of GTN. Global Training Network is all over the world, and this is about 80% of them in a meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona this last February. And so it is a great bunch of people. Most of them are seasoned missionaries. Many of them have come over from other boards, some of them pastors for many years. And so we're all in the business of training pastors in different parts of the world. As far as my situation right now, the reason I'm not traveling, in August of 2017, I injured my back again, and for the umpteenth time. Only this time it's taken a lot longer to get past it. And then my hip joined in early February. So I'm going to be having hip replacement surgery on April 30th. And they say there's going to be 8 weeks rehab recoup, and then I'll be able to travel after that. So that's what we're looking forward to, and excited about that, and get back in the saddle. How do we work in the world? First of all, we go to different countries in the world, identifying pastors to work with. Usually they will write and ask us, or call and ask us, and say, can you come and train, because they've heard about what happened in another place with a different group. So we go and train pastors, and they will often have many assistant pastors under them. In China, they will have meeting points, hundreds of meeting points. For, let's say, one local church in China will have as many as 400, 500 meeting points under them. So they'll have all these meeting point pastors that they are over. Essentially, every pastor in China functions as a bishop. Then after we train the pastors, then those pastors train the saints. they make disciples in their own congregation and train them in the same things that they've learned, and then the saints reach the world. And so that's how it's slated to work, and that is how it works. That's how God has blessed it over the years. Frankly, we don't do this just to have a job or something to do. When we go in, we're asking God to transform the body of Christ in the country. We're asking God to transform the country, and so that it has basically a substantial and effective Christian population, and for generations to come. We don't want to just log time. We want to see God change the world, and He's doing that, and we are thrilled with what God is doing. Just to see how we do our work, we receive an invitation or an application from a local body of Christ. If it's just one pastor, we tell them, you have to bring this training to the rest of the body of Christ in your area. And so we'll have Presbyterian, Lutheran, Evangelical Lutheran, Evangelical Methodist, Anglican, you name it, if they're Orthodox. And we have a very stringent statement of faith. If they will agree to that, to be governed by that, then we'll come. And we'll also take that time to do vetting on that individual to make sure we don't get stuck with somebody who's all noise, and then but their character is bankrupt. And we've come across a few of those people that we discovered in the vetting. And then we'll do our initial training in the area. If they're sensing that they want discipleship first or pastoral leadership training, wherever they're itching, we'll scratch that itch at first, but then we'll come and when we come back, we bring the rest of the process. And we come back usually several times to cover various modules. Then we identify budding leaders after we've done the initial training, and then we work on developing those leaders. In between the times that I have come and given the training, or one of the others have come and given the training, then we work with that guy. We develop him. I'm on the email or sometimes the phone or Facebook Messenger or however we can connect. I'm with them all the time, every day. And so and they get developed. Then we return for training in new areas of training, and we work with those leaders as they train. We ask them to, the first time, give a testimony, the second time, train in a given area, a small area, and we see how they do, and then we help them get over any humps. And then by the time we're done with the process, they're an effective trainer. We have developed right now in Central Africa, we have 45 master trainers, and they are working at developing other trainers under them all the time. Then once that has happened, we appoint coordinators for a given area, and they work with the pastors directly, representing us. And then they'll train other master trainers. And then that leads to ongoing work with coordinators and master trainers in the area. So they become our representatives in a given space. We usually start with discipleship. We have a book. I was very glad that Robert uses that book. Is it Robert? Did I get that right? Good. That Authentic Discipleship, that takes a person from a brand new believer, sometimes even evangelizing them to become a believer, up to what we call a self-feeding Christian. So they can begin to take the nourishment from the Word and from the Lord's presence themselves. Then we train them in evangelism so that they know how to share the good news. Then we work with pastoral leadership training, and then church planting, then theology. We don't start, many of you would start with theology, and probably we would too, but they've already got a theology on their own. Then as we're working with them in these others, that begins to shift. And finally, we end up with a solid biblical theology that both they and we agree on after we've nurtured them for a long time. And we've also learned that if you teach theology in a ministry matrix, it prevents stagnation, and sometimes there are levels of pride that people reach when they're not really serving the Lord, but they're intaking a lot of theology. As Paul says, knowledge puffeth up in the old King James. And we've seen that. So if it's in a ministry matrix, then the theology has somewhere to go. They've got some sacred, how do I say, some places to hang their sacred clothes, so to speak. They know that they're going to be using what they get. And then lastly, pastoral practicum. Where we work in the world, we have our current, just for Maxine and I, our current fields and endeavors are Uganda. We were working in Rwanda as our kind of center base, but Rwanda's been going through several changes lately. We'll talk about those. We're working right now through Bishop Emmanuel Okwalinga. He's our Africa director. He's a very gifted young man. He's in his late 30s, and an incredible theological mind as well as administrative mind. And so he is over 3 episcopacies in Uganda. And he has adopted a training platform where he brings in pastors who are currently in the pastorate. He will bring them in for a residency of a few weeks and go over an area intensely. And they stay right there at the headquarters. And then they go back to their pastorates and they work out what hopefully he worked in. So we start with discipleship and evangelism, and then a year later they come back for theology, and they cover that intensely. They bring that back to their church and work with it. A year later we cover church planting with those people because they're all going to be reproducing new congregations. And then they take that back to their church for a year. Then the last one is church leadership and administration. We're starting in the north central area, and then that's going to move all across Uganda. This is one of the churches where Emmanuel spent about 4 weeks training discipleship with the people that you see there in Magoro. And in January, and 33 people received Christ and are growing in the Lord. So we're happy about that. In DR Congo is the very large country there in the center of Africa, really the heart of Africa. It abuts 9 other countries in Africa, so it's a major player. The old saying is that as Congo goes, so goes Africa. So if Congo is in trouble, and it usually is, then Africa's in trouble. And there may be as many as 9 different countries sending incursionary forces into Congo at any given time. And the tendency of the government is headquartered here at where these 2 little corners come in the extreme western part of the country, and the eastern part suffers from terrible neglect. And so there are rebel groups there constantly, all the time. We have 5 different coordinators in DR Congo. I don't need to say those names that you couldn't pronounce probably anyway, but they're wonderful people, great men of God. And each of them is over hundreds of churches. So once we work with them, then when they train and develop master trainers, those people then take it to levels we can't even imagine. So we rejoice in that. This just happened last week in Rutshuru, North Kivu in DR Congo, the extreme northeast part of the country. And pastors were trained in authentic discipleship just last week. in December, we had 4 of the missionaries that we trained there martyred in Congo. They were working in a coltan mine. Coltan is one of those minerals that everybody uses every day without knowing it. It's in your cell phone, it's in your printer, it's in your computer, it's in all of your technical equipment. It's used for circuitry. And so it's very expensive. These guys work $5 a day risking their lives because rebel groups want what they've got. And they were there preaching the gospel and working with some new disciples when a rebel group broke through the UN peacekeeping lines and killed all 4. So we lost 4 this last year. We lost 2 the year before that in the same way or similar way. So that's coltan there, and that's one of the guys working for it. So we also we raise support for the martyrs' widows over here. There's no money at all, zero economy in Congo. They had I think it was 10 years ago, in 2008, the unemployment rate was 92% among males, if you can imagine. That's not the employment rate, that's the unemployment rate. So there's no money there. So in order for these people to keep going, we have to raise money for them over here. And thankfully that happened, and it was a beautiful thing to see. You can imagine what they look forward to now without a husband and without an income. One of the great things that's happened is that we have a new church planting book called Authentic Church Planting. It's the sequel to Authentic Discipleship, and now that has just been translated into Swahili and French. And Authentic Discipleship has several other languages too, but this is a new one for us, and it's opened tremendous doors, and we're looking forward to God giving results. We've had a number of conversions in the Congo area and in the nations right next to Congo since the training began in that country in 2008. And right now it's up to 62,000 plus who have become Christians, almost all adults, by the way, very few children. 62,000 since 2008 in the last decade. Actually, I think right now, from what I'm hearing, it's over 63, but we'll just stay with the safe figure. And that has actually doubled in the last 3 years. So the movement, it qualifies now as a people movement, and the movement is growing greatly. Next door in Rwanda, we have these 2 gentlemen, William Kachuba, our national rep, and Claude Kabachwari, who directs all the Great Lakes countries in Africa. Claude is one of the first guys that I worked with in Africa. A great guy, wonderful guy. We started working there shortly after the genocide in 1999. Almost as soon as we could get in, we came in, and it was a wonderful relationship. But sadly, even though that was our headquarters for many years, more than 8,000 Rwandan churches have recently been closed last year through a government directive. We think that the pressure came from China because right now what China's doing is, and I've been working in China since 2007. What China does is it goes into poorer countries that they know cannot pay them back, and they'll build their infrastructure, etc. But in terms of payment, then they'll ask for a voice in their national policy. And so they set policies that are friendly to China. And so the same policies that China had, namely that they could only have a pastor who has a degree, and that churches have to have certain facilities and certain locations built up to certain standards, and that churches can only meet in a building, they cannot meet in a house. Those are the same standards now that China is demanding that their client states also take. And so that's what's happened in Rwanda. China built their road structures, so now they're taking Chinese Chinese policies. So please pray. Many of these are our trainees. And and many of their churches are closed. The pastors are heartbroken. We're trying to encourage them, get them to hang in there. But they're trying to, as I said, there's very little money in Central Africa, and so they're trying to do the impossible. So please pray for them. It's easy to reproduce if you're home-based or you've got a neutral structure that you can rent with no problem. But if you have to build your own structure, which is what the demand is in China and now here, it's well nigh impossible for Africans. But that's the new demand. Burundi, we've been working in the last few years. Pastor Silas, Bishop Silas, I should say, is a great guy. He's over the Baptist Union there. So we've been working with the Baptist Union, training all their church planters. This is a brand new church whose pastor I trained in the Central Highlands. And he's led, I think it's over 60 people just this year, just this winter and spring. They don't have winter and spring there. It's on the equator, so it's all the same. But just in the last few months, they've led that many to Christ, and so they're seeing a wonderful turnout. This was a large meeting in Bujumbura, Burundi, which is the capital. And it was televised. You can see all the different representatives of all the different churches there. And that's the First Lady, who's an ardent evangelical. And I had the opportunity to share the gospel, and it was fun. It was great, partly because it was broadcast all over on national TV. And she saw that, and so she asked if I could, she found out what I was doing, and she asked, can I come back and have a much larger training platform? So she's opening the door for us to do that. And it's a wonderful, fantastic opportunity, which we're going to soon take advantage of. We're also working in Tanzania. Ernest Nguvila is our national rep there since 2006. It's also a large country. We had a strategy there of which we called our ring strategy. Most of the people are on the outskirts where that ring is, that large ring, and this line here, I mean. And in the coasts and on the borders are the population centers. So we had a strategy where we would train there, and all the bases of those arrows is where we've trained. We finished up on this one just this last week. And his goal then was to move toward the center where most of the challenges are. That's where the animists and spiritists are. That's where the Muslims are, in the middle. His target was to get to train up to and including the city of Dodoma, which is the capital, the political capital. And this is one of 3 training sessions that he had in Dodoma this last year and a half. So we're excited that his training strategy has already been fulfilled, but now they have to fill in the dots in between where the rings and the arrows are to make sure that it's taken to the whole country. China, we're excited about China, even though there's been a huge clampdown the last 2 years, especially the last 18 months. Where several people now cannot come to church at all, especially if they're 18 or under. They now have CCTV cameras in church parking lots that have monitors in the police department, and the police watch it all the time to see if anyone under 18 comes in. And if they do, then they go right over there and take them out. So there's been a large clampdown in China. That's just one of, I could list 20 different measures that have taken place. But we started working on this book and getting it into the hands of Chinese pastors several years ago. And now this has been translated into Chinese. So we are, I've already got it into the hands of one influential Chinese leader in his province. Currently, there are 100,000 new Christians every year. if you can imagine. And so he said, please help us with discipleship material. I said, we will. And so we got that to them. And we're going to be, Lord willing, going back this fall to work with him and several other pastors to begin the training process for many of these new believers with solid Chinese discipleship material. Besides training, the number one goal of the trip is to, as I said, put the Chinese translation of the book into the hands of the pastors themselves, and so that they can print it up and distribute it in the provinces. And finally, there are some other countries that we're sort of in between things with them, and I won't cover them today, but Nepal is a very active hotspot. Up until 2 years ago, it was considered the fastest growing Christian population on earth. As a little tiny country just over India, and at the top of Nepal on the border is Mount Everest, and of course many of the other Himalayan peaks through there. Because of the nature of the country, all those pockets of cities, there's 30 circles of about 3 cities each. They're all cut off by mountain peaks between them. So getting to them is very hard. Having a training strategy is very hard. So we developed what we call the 30 circle strategy, where we would go and get representatives of churches from 3 cities each to come together. We would train them, then they would take it back to train their pastors. Almost as soon as we got that on the boards, lo and behold, Nepal passed an anti-conversion law, which means now that it is illegal to preach the gospel. It's illegal to share the gospel in order to try to influence someone else to come to Jesus. So please pray that we can have creative solutions to know. Obviously, the Nepalis themselves are the ones who have to come up with this. It's their culture, and they know how to do it in such a way that they don't get in trouble. We used to be able to preach right on the streets, but now we can't do it anymore. So pray for that, if you could, that we know how to get around the new laws, and that, as Paul says, the word of God is not bound. So nothing stops him, nothing stops the Lord when he wants to move. So pray that he will, and that that continues.